Hi, my name is CELESTA GIBBS, and I am a faculty member in the Molecular Pathology program in Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center. I, along with some of my colleagues from my department, examine some of the data from our program and how we assess professionalism. So together we looked at developing professionalism and is it working? So the objective of this project was to determine whether or not the professionalism evaluations given by the molecular pathology faculty was meeting the standards of the clinical laboratory. So the data was collected from 2021, 2022, and 2023, and it was the student evaluations that are performed 3 times for each cohort. So that is in the fall midterm, fall final, and spring final. So 3 evaluations per cohort for those 3 years. Using repeated measures ANOVA, it was determined that there was a very statistically significant difference between the means of the fall midterm, fall final, and spring final, and that's for each cohort. So just a little bit about the program. The molecular pathology program is a 1-year lockstep graduate degree. In the program, the students enter into the summer semester, and we go from summer, a full fall semester, and then about 8 weeks on campus in the spring semester, with the final 8 weeks of the spring semester being their clinical preceptorship, which is at one of the affiliated laboratories around the U.S. So the molecular pathology program faculty, they evaluate the students at fall midterm. So this would be based on any of the actions or the behaviors that the students exhibited during that summer semester and the first 8 weeks of the fall semester. And using the rubric that is on this poster, we look at 10 different areas, including interpersonal skills, communication, effective use of resources, use of constructive feedback, professionalism, so on and so forth. So all of those different things, the students do get descriptions of, so they know what would be classified as a 5 and what would be classified as a 10. So it is that scale between 5 and 10 that they could receive a score, and each of the MP faculty do evaluate the students independently, and then it is the averages of all of those that will be actually given on that midterm evaluation, final fall evaluation, or spring final evaluation. So in addition to the actual score, they do actually receive some feedbacks and comments that would just detail why they received a certain score and perhaps what they could do to improve on that score. So if we move over to the data section, you can see that there are the averages for 2021, 2022, and 2023. So if you start with the first column, we're looking at the midterm fall scores. So they're all looking between 78, 83 on average, and you can see that there is an increase from that midterm fall to the fall final. So they are taking that feedback and using it so that way they are able to grow from it, and maybe they weren't aware of certain weaknesses, and then they're able to overcome some of that. And then you can see from fall final to spring final, they are still increasing, but not as great as they were from midterm to fall. So then if you look at the right-hand part of that, of table 1, you can see that from midterm to fall final, we're looking at an increase anywhere between 6 and 9 points. And then fall final to spring final, anywhere between about 2.5 to 7.5 points, with the largest increase being between the midterm to the spring final, because that does encompass more time, which is why you do see the largest increase during that span of time. So if you look at the standard deviations, they are all pretty much within 2 standard deviations. So all of the students are around, around that mean, with the exception of 2023's cohort. So this is where we saw anywhere between 5 and 6 standard deviations, and that meant that there were a few outliers, or there was more variation there, and which is why we had greater than 2.5 standard deviations. So another way to look at this data is to look at figure 1. So you can see in all blue is the midterm fall average score, and then in yellow are the fall final scores, and then in red are the spring final scores. So if we look at just class of 2021, we're looking at an average of 83 on that first evaluation, increasing to about a 92.5, and then ultimately receiving a 95.79 in that spring final evaluation. So class of 22, starting with about an 82 on average, increasing to a 91, and then finally ending with about a 94. And then class of 2023, starting with a 78.9, and then getting up to an 85 at that fall final, and then a 93 on the spring final evaluation. So there are a couple of things that you can see just from this type of graph. You can see that there is an overall increase between the beginning evaluation through the end. So from midterm fall to fall final to spring final, they are overall, it is trending upward. And then if we move down to table 2, you can see the p-values for each cohort. So the p-values were determined by repeated measures ANOVA, and all of these scores are very significant. So that is what the 2 asterisks mean in terms of reporting statistically significant numbers. 1 asterisk would be that it is significant, which is below 0.05, and with these being much lower than 0.05, they are considered to be very significant. So the way that this data was taken is, I've already described a little bit. So each MP faculty member will use the matrix that is shown in figure 2, and they will independently evaluate each student. And then once, for fall final, for example, once each MP faculty has evaluated that student and perhaps provided some of the comments, then all of the averages will be taken from all of the MP faculty to create the final evaluation that will be given at that term. So with that data being available, we went ahead and put it into Microsoft Excel, and then that's when we were able to take those averages and see how there are the average increases on that professional evaluation over time. And then also using Microsoft Excel, the repeated measures ANOVA was performed. So if you're not familiar with repeated measures ANOVA, this type of statistical test compares the differences in the mean within the same sample observed at different points in time. So this compared not only fall midterm to fall final, but it also compared it to compared fall final to spring final and fall midterm to spring final. So look, comparing all of those different points in time to each other, that's how it was discovered that there is a statistically significant difference between the means of those terms. So as I pointed out in figure 1, there is an upward trend for each cohort. So the students entering, once they receive feedback, they are given the opportunity, or they do take advantage of that feedback and maybe correct some of their actions, or just we're bringing awareness to some of those professional behaviors that maybe they need to work on. And with that feedback, they do make those corrections, or just learn how to develop those skills a little bit better. But also shown in figure 1, if we were to look at each cohort compared to each other, it does show that there is this decline in the average scores from 2021 to 2023. So what I mean by this is, for class of 2021, those averages, so the height of all 3 of those bars in 2021's class, are higher than if we shift over to class of 2022. Now those averages for that cohort are less. And that trend still continues on if we look at class of 2023's, height of the bars, or just their average scores. So if you just look at, let's just look at fall midterm, that blue bar does decrease from 2021 to 2022 to 2023, and those same trends are seen, 21, 22, 23, that there's just that decline altogether. So in conclusion, there is an increase in professional evaluation scores between those 3 different evaluation terms between each cohort, or for each cohort. But there also is an indication that students entering the program after 2021 exhibit less professionalism than prior years. So that's evident by that average of 78 in 2023 versus that average in 2021 of 83. So it does appear that the students are coming in slightly less professional than prior years. And one thing that you might be considering is the pandemic, and maybe having less opportunities to kind of develop those professional skills. But you can also see that it is evident that periodic evaluation of their professionalism and providing feedback does increase their professional attributes before entering the workforce. So I would say that, developing this professionalism is working, because they're still getting up to that 93 by the end of the spring.